Hey, welcome to Soul Hub. So in this week's episode, I want to discuss a small key that can open up a very big gate, so to say, and create a possible breakthrough in terms of awakening. And that small key is the idea of non-doership. What does that mean? Well, the idea here is that you, the you that you think you are, is not the doer of actions nor the thinker of thoughts. Obviously, we're all literally programmed, cultured to believe that we are the doer of our actions and the thinker of our thoughts, clearly. But every great master has always said, you are not the doer of actions and you are not the thinker of your thoughts. Why? Because there is no you as you think of yourself to be. That you is just a concept, is just an idea appearing in consciousness, appearing in presence or awareness, just as this body appears in it. What you are is that background, is that consciousness, that spaciousness in which this body is appearing, and in which the sense of being a person is also appearing. A person that is within this body, animating this body, is appearing and thinking the thoughts and doing the deeds. But any, let's say, awakened or enlightened being does not experience themselves as being a person inside a body doing the things or thinking thoughts. They liken it, it differs from being to being in terms of how they explain it. But for the most part, they liken it to being like this spacious presence, this pure witnessing presence that is almost witnessing just the body acting and the mind and producing thoughts, but it's here watching this occurring. And the I that they feel themselves to be is the I am. Just pure I amness, pure existence in this moment. Not I am this, I am that. And so the small key is to start, not just understand this intellectually, that helps at first, but that doesn't do much. It's really to start perceiving this in almost a visceral way, like an actual felt experience of non-doership. A felt experience of the fact that you are not the thinker of your thoughts. You're not the doer of your actions. So how do you do that? Well, I've experimented with this a lot, and it can start, a great way to start is actually in meditation, and then you can transition it into everyday life. It's much more difficult to do it in everyday life because we get so sucked in to the actions and the thinking that is very more difficult. It's not impossible, but it's more difficult to perceive yourself as the non-doer. And I'm also going to explain, by the way, the benefit of perceiving this. But first is how. So first, you can try it through meditation. So what I like to do is to meditate, and I learned this early on from Adyashanti, who's an incredible spiritual teacher. And what he teaches is essentially just don't have a goal when you're meditating, right? Don't have a specific goal or outcome. Don't have the goal of I want to reach some peaceful state or I want to reach some transcendent mystical experience, right? If you're going to have a goal, the only goal needs to be just to be open, right, with childlike innocence, and see what arises. And that's also, by the way, what my mentor Richard Haidt teaches in terms of meditation, right? Just have this openness of experiencing in the moment whatever is going to arise. Now, the way you can do this is, let's say you close your eyes, and instead of trying to achieve a state, you just watch for what sensations, whether they're physical or subtle inner sensations or inner experiences, are going to arise. So it's almost like you're this really engaged watcher, like you're watching a movie and you're like, I wonder what's going to arise now. And the idea here is anytime you notice some effort arising, like you're trying to make something happen, you're trying to have some beautiful or mystical experience, there's a realization, or let's say you can just even repeat one simple thought as a guide, as an aid, right? Which is, what if there was no one to do anything? What if there was no one here to do anything? What would be occurring? Now, of course, that's actually much more true than we realize. There actually is no one here to do anything, but we all, for the most part, believe that we're there, and we have a sense that there's an individual here to do something. And so the question arises, well, what if there were no individual inside here to do anything? What if all there was just presence, awareness, and that's it? So just ask that question only and see where it leads. When I ask it, what happens is typically there's this silence that follows, and it's just like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. If there's no individual trying to do anything, not because the individual is not trying to do anything, but because there's no individual to do anything to begin with, there's nothing there, what's going to arise? And it becomes this literally fascinating exploration. What's going to arise? And then sometimes a sensation arises and awareness notices that. And then a feeling arises and awareness notices that. And then something more subtle, energetic arises and awareness notices that. And sometimes awareness turns in on itself and it notices that it's aware. You don't know what's going to happen. But what I do know is that the moment you ask this kind of question, you just look inside with innocent curiosity and ask, what if there was actually no one here to do anything? No one here to even meditate, no meditator. What happens is this just experience starts unfolding by itself, and you're in non-doing. You're in non-willing, non-action. You're just watching, and it's by itself it's happening. Now, in truth, that's actually what's always occurring, as every great master has ever said, that it's all just happening. We just think we're doing it. Well, meditating in this way, where you're not really meditating, you're just being there and allowing the meditation essentially to happen by itself, gives you a direct experience of this non-doership. And then when a thought arises, you realize, I'm not thinking, it's just arising because I'm the one watching clearly. I mean, I've identified here very clear myself as the curious watcher. So now if a thought arose, well, where did it come from? It's just arising. If a sensation arises, where did it come from? I don't know, it's just arising. And it becomes this kind of playful, beautiful thing, oh, wow. And what I notice is that there's this openness and this spaciousness that occurs when I meditate in that way. But then you could take it a step further and you can bring it into everyday life. By the way, I also do this with music. Sometimes I'll put music in headphones. It can be any music you like. I like to do not words, so to say, let's say instrumental music, maybe violin or something like that. And I become, again, this space, and then the music's just arising from inside me. It doesn't feel any longer that I'm a human who has a headphones in his ear. It just feels like I'm the universe, and music's just arising spontaneously within it. And it's, again, another beautiful way to experience non-doership, things are just occurring. And so then we can start trying to transfer it over into daily life. And the way you do that is really kind of the same way. Once you get the hang of it in meditation, you start just having that kind of attitude as you go about your day. Of course, first it's easier in silence when you're not interacting with people, but to just notice the body just does stuff. You can explain how you did something, yeah, I decided to do this, but why did you decide that? That's the thing. You can always be descriptive about how something occurred, but why? You don't know why you decided to do what you did. You could say, well, I felt like doing that. Yeah, but why did you feel like doing that? There's actually no why. You can't go back enough to realize a why. You could say, well, I wanted to put a jacket on. Why? Because I'm cold. Okay, why were you cold? Because the temperature in the room was cold. Why was it cold? Because the AC was like this. Yeah, but why was cold created in this? My point is, you can keep going back enough in terms of whys till you get to a point where something is just the way it is, just because that's universally just what is, right? And any little thing, there seems to be causal events and so forth that are practical. But when you keep going back enough, you get to a place where there is no actual answer to why. It's just all arising, all spontaneously. And so you can start seeing your life like that, seeing actions like that, seeing thoughts like that, seeing behaviors like that, right? That's how you can start noticing your shadow even more. If you're just watching witness and then you notice yourself acting in a way, if you're the witness, you're not identified with that action. You're like, oh, look, he felt anger. Huh, why did he feel frustration? And you're not trying to answer why. It was just like almost amusing. But then it doesn't have that same power to suck you in and create a thought stream and all that, because you're the witness. And so that's the kind of attitude of witnessing that I like to experiment with, is this just literally this spacious non-doing, where you're just surprised by what's going to happen next, what you're going to say next. Like even now, if I could do it right now, like what's arising out of me right now, I have no clue. There's this aspect of me that's kind of watching this in amusement, like, oh, speaking is going on. That's interesting. And it seems like, yeah, I'm deciding to say this and that, but am I really? It's just coming out of my mouth. And so, but it's like that anyway. It's just we fail to notice it because we're so identified by what we're saying or what we're thinking, or what we're doing. And so what's the benefit of being this witness and consciously seeing that you're not the doer of action, you're not the thinker of thoughts, that it's just arising and you are the one perceiving it? Well, the benefit is that what it starts to occur is that as you start identifying more and more simply with the perceiver or the witness, is the energy behind the seeming self that's doing, that's thinking, is being taken away. It doesn't have a life of its own. It's a construct. It's a mental construct. It's a fiction. But it's given energy through identification with it. So the more and more you just witness and you don't identify with it, the less fuel you're giving it, And eventually, if it gets, little to no food or fuel, it starts crumbling. It starts crumbling away. And when it starts crumbling away, what that opens up to is the experience of what is called abiding non-dual awareness, which is simply the pure freedom, the pure joy of existence, without believing that you're a separate person. It's just the universe is you, and you are just flowing, and actions happen through the body, and everything happens at the right time in the right place for the highest good, and it just flows. And that's true freedom, right? That's true authenticity, because it's not the mind, it's just occurring, right? And so that's the idea, and that's what brings the peace and the joy at the deepest level. Of course, the barrier here, or the seeming barrier, is that the ego, or the separate sense of self, does not want to disappear and does not want to crumble. And so a lot of resistance arises with this practice. I just have to have to fairly warn you about this. I've experienced this a lot. As the deeper I go into this, there's usually a recoil, strong recoil in the other direction. It's like, oh my God, something within goes, wait a minute, if I keep going in this direction, if I am just being witnessed, because I'm not the witness, as the mind starts becoming witnessed by something else, I have nowhere to go. It feels like it's cornered, and all of a sudden it knows it's like disappearing. In truth, it never was, but that's not what we feel like when it's actually happening. So it's like, oh my God, there's a fear of annihilation, and then there's resistance and anger and whatever occurs. Or it can play out many ways. For me, it comes out as anger. It could be that it distracts you. You start wanting to do something else instead of the simple practice of being the silent witness. But then, when that plays itself out, and you try to witness that if you can. If you can't, if it's overwhelming, when it plays itself out, go back to it. Just keep at it. Each time it gets easier to come out of it. And, eventually the point is that you're left with just what you truly are, your true effortless nature. And to do this practice, you don't want to be doing it with the hope of achieving something in the future, because that's just the mind trying to do something. And this is a non-doing, right? So this is just in the moment. Oh, I wonder what's arising. And if resistance arises, then, oh, look, resistance is arising. It's always just witnessing whatever is arising. And so try that. Try noticing that you are not the doer of action. You are not the thinker of thoughts. Do it in meditation. Do it in daily life, and see what effect it has. I mentioned the resistance, but other than the resistance that can come up, it's actually very beautiful. There's an openness that comes up. There's this freedom that comes up, and you start realizing more and more that you're just this ever-present space that can never be harmed, that can never die, that can never go away, that was never born. It's just there. It's already there. You don't have to try to do this. You just have to notice the awareness is already there. It's already aware of the thoughts. It's already aware. And you just notice that. You gently fall into it. You gently relax into it. That's the key to the practice, this open, innocent curiosity of relaxing into it. All right, so try it, and I hope it helps. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.